I didn't even feel any chemistry between the two of them. It just came out of left field. It would have been better if they just remained close friends, remained friends. There was no reason to push them into being lovers. There was absolutely no reason. There was no chemistry there. There was nothing. Hello everybody, my name is Heather, and today I am doing my wrap up of the month of May. I am telling you every single book that I read during the month of May, which actually turned out to be quite a few. And I ended up getting through the thickest book in my list, which was Mistborn, and I am excited to talk about that one. So let's get started. The first book that I read was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. It was about two publishers who ended up meeting about a book and ended up having a unfortunate circumstance happen between the two of them. There was some miscommunications and all of this fun stuff, and they ended up having just a different view of each other starting out. Then you have several years pass by. There was a big time skip, and the female lead ended up going on vacation to the small town where she ends up running into the male lead. And from there, their relationship starts to blossom and bloom and grow, and it was a very fun read overall, but it wasn't my favorite. I know it was supposed to be an enemies to lover type trope, which I don't mind so much, but the growth of their relationship, there wasn't even really any relationship to grow. It was just one lustful interaction after another. And so to me, it just wasn't hitting the mark where I was wanting. It wasn't a terrible book, but it wasn't something that I was really looking for. I give it a 3.5 star. Then I decided to give Emily Henry a second go round because I've heard a lot of good things about her, and so I decided to read another book from her, and it was People We Meet on Vacation. I liked this one a little better than Book Lovers, but I was also a little annoyed at the interactions between the two leads. I felt like the misunderstandings between them, it could have been cleared up a lot if they would have just communicated and sat down and talked things through, but they didn't, and they wouldn't. And so it was just, this is my last ditch effort to get to spend time with this person. And it just spiraled from there into a scene that I skipped most of the way through because I don't really like those scenes in my reading. So I would give this one probably, I liked it better, so I would say that probably 4 stars, because this one actually did have the slow burn, and you did see them trying to work through their problems together and find, but I didn't like the ending and how the male lead and the female lead just split up at the end, and then they came back together. It was just there was no reason for that. They could have worked it out right there on the spot, but you have this last misunderstanding before they finally get together, and to me it was just unwarranted, and it should have ended and before that. Then the next book I had, I didn't really care for at all. It was a free read off of my Amazon Prime account, and it's called Plus One Pact, and I didn't like it. I finished reading it just to see if it would get any better, but it didn't. It's a romance, and you have these two people meet in a bar or a restaurant, I can't remember which one, it was because the female lead was going on a blind date, a Tinder date, and she ended up getting stood up, and then she ends up meeting the male lead, and they meet each other and hang out that night, go to a bar together, and he starts teaching her how to pick up guys, and then they start developing a friendship and then make a pact to go to each other's events that summer so they won't be alone. And you can see where it is. It was funny in some parts. I do feel like with not just this one, but the other two books, People We Meet Are on Vacation and Book Lovers, I felt like there was so much swearing in it, especially Plus One Pact. There was like none, and then about a third of the way through, it just devolved into swear words every other page. And I don't understand why you would put so much of that in a book. I don't feel like it's necessary. When I went through my creative writing class, my creative writing teacher said to use swear words or cuss words sparingly. Use them only in situations where they are warranted. That way you can emphasize what is going on in the moment. And I feel like in these books, they were so overused, and it just drew away from the actual story. They drew away from the actual stories. So I'm not really sure why in books now there's so much cussing when there's more language out there to emphasize what you have to say. So yeah, that's my thought on those three books. The Plus One Pact, I would probably give it a 2-star, maybe 1.5. I just wasn't too thrilled. It was overall clean. It didn't have any spicy scenes in it that I know of, or that I can remember. But overall, it was just something I wish I wouldn't have wasted my time on, but I did. It didn't get any better. Then the next book that I read was No Offense by Meg Cabot, and I actually did not finish this one. I had just come off of Plus One Pact and the other two books by Emily Henry, and I was disappointed, and I wanted something that was gonna grab my attention, and so I started. And the way it starts off, I almost immediately stopped reading this book because of the ridiculousness and just inappropriateness of the first section. It wasn't even the first chapter, but it was the first few pages. It was just ridiculous. I'm gonna just tell you, this may be a spoiler, so if you want to read this book by Meg Cabot, no offense, then please skip ahead, but I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of a spoiler in here. The first page opens up with a teenage boy in a children's cookie decorating class or event that is being held at the library because the main female lead is a librarian. She set up this, and this teenager shows up, and she doesn't make him leave because it's a library and it's a public library, and she wants everybody to feel welcome. Okay, that's fine and dandy, and that would be great if he wasn't causing the type of scene that he was. He was taking the characters, the gingerbread characters, who were all gingerbread men shape because she didn't want female shape ones, because then that would be sexist, because everybody can wear pants, not just men. Okay, that's another thing I'll get to in just a moment. But the cookies were all one shape. They were all neutral. And this teenager was decorating them with very elaborate genitals, very elaborate features on them, male and female parts, and than having a scene with them doing things and in front of children. And she doesn't want to kick him out because it's a library and she never ever wants to call the cops on a child. I understand what you're saying, but what he is doing is completely inappropriate, and that did not need to happen. It wasn't funny, it was disgusting, and I don't understand why Meg Cabot would think that that situation is funny. And even the librarian, when they're escorting the teenager to a different part of the library, says that it was funny, but it wasn't the right moment to have it. It wasn't funny. This child does not need to be doing that stuff. No, it wasn't funny. I don't know. That bothered me so much, and I almost quit reading then, and I kind of wish I would have, because then I wouldn't have wasted more of my time on it. But I decided to give it the benefit of the doubt, hoping that it would just get better, and she was just using that as a big wow factor to pull people in. But it just got worse, and every other page there was something about sexism or sexual harassment or something in it that was said by either the daughter, the policeman, or the librarian, and all of it was just, it got to the point where I was rolling my eyes every time I saw the word sexist or sexism. I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. You're a feminist. Got it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a feminist, but oh my goodness, there's so many times that you can just reiterate the word sexist in a book when I didn't even read half the book, and it was just every other page, if not every page, and I got tired of seeing it. And so after that, I was like, okay, is this book gonna get any better? So I started looking up reviews, and the reviews were not good. So I was like, you know what? I'm not wasting any more of my time on this book. I've already had the past 3 books have just been okay. It's not what I'm looking for. I'm done with this book. So I just didn't finish it, and I'm not sorry. I'm actually glad I didn't finish reading it, because I moved on to something better. So I started reading Mistborn because it came in my library app, and I finished reading it, and that one is one of my favorite books this month. So let's get on to Mistborn. It is my very first Brandon Sanderson book, and I'm really glad I decided to read it. It was so much fun watching Vin and Kelsier and the whole group come together and go on their journey. I don't want to put any spoilers in here, but Mistborn is about these group of thieves coming together to try and overthrow the Lord Ruler, who is evil and has people in, basically everybody is a slave to him, or in some type of way, whether it's money or an actual slave. It's very interesting read, and I will give a more in-depth review in just later on this month, because it is honestly one of my favorite books, and I can't wait to get the other one in, the second book in the series in. I think I'm just gonna order the series off of Amazon and have them come in so I can just binge read them all. The next one that I read was Keeper of the Lost Cities 2, which is Exile, and I enjoyed this one. Oh, I forgot. I would say that Mistborn, is Mistborn 5 stars? Let's see. Yes, I'm gonna give Mistborn 5 stars, because I enjoyed that one so much. It was so fun going through the adventures. I did get a little annoyed here and there, but I think that was the whole point of those situations anyway, is to get annoyed with some of the characters. That's okay. Mistborn is 5 stars. Moving on to Keeper of the Lost Cities 2, Exile. I enjoyed this one for the most part. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but I did enjoy it. It was very fun, and I sat down and read it in like 2 days because I had nothing to do on a weekend, and so that's what I did. I chose to do that for Mother's Day. what I wanted to do was read, and that's what I got to do. So I read it, and I liked it for the most part. You have Sophie, who is dealing with the aftermath of being kidnapped in the first book, along with her friend Dex, and they are just going on this adventure and trying to figure things out. One thing I will say is, honestly, I feel like even though Sophie has a lot of different powers and very strong powers, it doesn't matter. She's still a kid. She's still a 12-year-old kid, and these adults are forgetting that, and they're putting her in impossible situations and failing her. They are failing her big time. Even the adoptive parents, who I actually really, really love, who they are trying to protect her, but I feel like they're trying to protect her over the wrong things. Like there's this one situation where they just let her go and don't even question it. But in another situation, they're like, no, because this involves this, you can't go. It's like, no, you should have been that way about both of them, because she is still a 12-year-old girl and she did not need to go there with and do that because she's only 12. It would be like me sending my son, and I would not do that. I would not allow them to take him to do something like that at 12 years old, because that would affect his mind and affect him. No, that's what parents are for. Adults are there to step in to protect these children, and I feel like the adults here failed her in so many ways. But overall, I did enjoy the book. It came out okay. Everything came out okay. But I feel like so many of the situations in that book could have been prevented if adults would have stepped up and stood up for her and protected her and kept her from going and doing these things. The next book that I read is Legends and Lattes. I read it and I started it off and I really, really enjoyed it until the end, when they made the two, it was Viv and I cannot remember the other girl, the succubus, I cannot remember her name, but when they made them romantic interests, to me, I didn't even feel any chemistry between the two of them. It just came out of left field. It would have been better if they just remained close friends, There was no reason to push them into being lovers. There was absolutely no reason. There was no chemistry there. There was nothing. And it was just like, oh, hi, we like each other. I didn't like that aspect of it. I wish it would have just been a wholesome, cozy, no romance in it at all, just building a coffee shop together as friends. And you don't have to have a romance in it to make it successful. To me, the romance in it took away from the book, took away from the friendships that were being built in there. Why can't there be just friendships? Why does everything have to be romanticized? I do enjoy a good romance, but I feel like that not everything has to have romance in it also. I feel like that this book would have been better if there wasn't any in it. If the two would not have even started a relationship, it would. Yeah, anyway, I'm just gonna get off my soapbox. I enjoyed it for the most part. You have Viv, who used to be a hunter and wanted to start a coffee shop to do something different because she was tired of living the life of the life of a hunter, or can't even remember what she was, but she was tired of fighting all the time and being in danger, and she wanted to start something new, so she decided to start a coffee shop. And she was successful and started to build it and met all these great people and friends, and I enjoyed it for the most part, except for the romance. The romance wouldn't have been in it. to me, it would have been a whole lot better. And the last book that I finished reading is the book that I've been reading with my kids for our read aloud, and that was The Wingfeather Saga: On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. And I really, really enjoyed this book as well. It was silly, but also it's been very serious, and there have been very scary situations in it, but they come out, they fight together as a family, and they persevere as a family, and that is where we are. And I really, really enjoyed it so much. It was so fun. In fact, I told my sister the other day that Mistborn is actually more of a grown-up version of the Green Ember and the Wingfeather Saga. So with a little more thievery in it, I guess. But to me, I think that's why I like Mistborn so much, because it reminded me so much of the Green Ember. But yes, Wingfeather Saga, I enjoyed it. Oh, I didn't. I forgot to rate the last couple books. Let's see. Keeper of the Lost Cities, I will rate a 3.5. Yeah, I'll rate it a 3.5. And Legends and Lattes, I would rate a 3. And On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness, I would rate a, I think that one's 5 stars too. I enjoyed it a lot. It was silly. You have footnotes in it that you get to read aloud, and they have very silly things in it. And so it helps balance the seriousness and the darkness of the story. And my children laugh so hard at some of the footnotes and some of the silliness in it. I laugh at it. It's a fun read, and I'm enjoying it so far. We're a good ways into the second book now, and I'm loving it just as much as the first one. And I'll be excited to finally get through this series, because it's been one that I've wanted to read for a while. So those are all the books that I read. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5 books. So 7.5 books I read, and I had 2 5 stars. One I did not finish, and one I just really didn't like, but I finished anyway. So it was very well rounded this month. So I started off kind of iffy and ended very good. So no complaints here. Let me know what you read in the month of May and what you are planning to read in the month of June. If you have read any of these books, did you like any of them? And yeah, that's all I have for today. So I will see you all next time. Bye.